You're listening to Ride Along, EMT School. I'm Mike.
And I'm Max. We're two students navigating EMT school, bringing you along week by week.
And I'm Jonathan, a paramedic bringing real-world perspective.
Join us as we share the lessons, challenges, and stories from EMT school, and hear insights from those already living the EMS life. Welcome to the Ride Along. Well, welcome everybody to the Ride Along EMT School podcast.
Welcome everybody.
Yeah, we're a little bit different tonight. I'm alone here in the Ride Along studio. Everyone else is remote and saying, "Well, We're just going to do this thing from. We're phoning it in. We're phoning it in from home."
Literally.
Yes. Well, welcome. Hello, sirs. How are you this evening?
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Shout out to Jay Gibson, who probably nobody would ever know that listens to this podcast. But if you want a really great educator or an amazing guy, you should check out Jay Gibson. A big influence on all of us.
For sure.
So this is episode 38.
38.
Yes.
38.
38
It's hard
episodes.
to believe it.
And we just keep making more because we took the episode that was supposed to be this week and we broke it into 2 episodes again.
We did. Yes.
I never thought, okay, like I think in the earlier episodes, we kind of we took more broad approach. And then as we started getting to learn more about EMS, we're like, there's a lot to share. And especially when it started getting into treatments and not necessarily just, like assessment or pathophys and all these other things where it's like, hey, here, you just need to know about this thing, not what to do with it.
Right.
Once we started doing that, it's like, oh, well, now we have to really start diving into this stuff. So we took this week's episode or this week's chapter, I should say, and we broke it apart. So we're talking about environmental emergencies. But this week, this episode's name is I Never Meant to Be So Cold. And bonus points for anybody out there who knows the song that is from and what the band name is. That
maybe
that
if they comment the answer, the first person, we should give them a shout out.
We will give you a shout out. Send us a note. Ride along podcasting at gmail.com and check it out.
Yeah.
Also, we have a new URL we should tell everyone about.
We do.
Oh, yes.
A new domain.
Someone did some work.
Yes. So we have a official website now. Well, the website's not done yet. Hopefully it will be done soon. But you can go to ridealongemtschool.com and check out our new URL. It brings you to a link tree right now, but our plan is hopefully over the next couple weeks, as soon as we can, we're going to have a nice web page that you can go to where you can learn maybe a little bit about us, our bios, and have some easy links to whatever the podcasting platform is of your choice. And hopefully maybe even get some of our merch stuff on there, for anybody that's interested.
The merch is fantastic.
Yeah, we have cool shirts and hats.
You do?
And
yes, we do.
And sweaters, even though it's...
And don't forget the Monster program that everyone should be a part of.
Oh yeah, we do. We have our support the podcast through a Monster energy drink donation, which we always appreciate.
It's constantly being depleted, people. So we're critically low.
Oh yeah,
so phone in your contributions. It's urgently needed so that we can continue to provide the information that you crave so much.
Yes.
It's what paramedics crave.
And EMTs too, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why we were making a little bit of a push on having a nicer website. We had an amazing opportunity come up this week.
Yes.
That we would love to give you all a hint about.
Huge, tremendous.
Huge. Jonathan, what did we do last night?
We may have been guest on another podcast with some folks.
Just a small one.
Just Not a huge one, but
No.
I don't know. Some guys named Chris and Spencer. Something called EMS 2020.
Yeah. Oh, only like the biggest EMS podcast in like the world right now.
Yes.
Which hopefully all of you know because they were on our channel a couple of months ago. I think it was January or
Yeah.
I forget when. But we have an interview on here where Jonathan and I, Max was off doing his own thing that day,
Working. Yes. No excuse.
being weird. And
Yeah.
we had an awesome conversation with them, learned about their journey in EMS and how they started the podcast. And they were gracious enough to bring us on to their podcast this week. And
Yes.
that was fun. Max, what did we do?
So we ran a call.
We did. So they have those special
We did.
episodes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it was amazing. It was awesome to be able to run that with the three of us as a team. That was great. And then to be able to interact with both of those, it was an amazing experience.
I couldn't agree more. I'm super excited about it because this was one of their special, I think they call them special episodes where they introduce a little bit of chaos into their call walkthrough. So we didn't just go on there and walk through an existing scenario that's happened before. They basically set up a tabletop kind of game for us.
Yes, they did.
And they had us play ourselves in this roll top world. And we had to complete a call with a little bit of dice rolls thrown in to kind of determine success or failure on some things. It was awesome. What was your favorite part without giving too much away? Without giving too much away, my absolute favorite part, can't lie, is the fact that they were nice enough to take a chance and figure out a way to bring all three of us on the show so that the three of us could have the opportunity to work together, which I don't know if we will ever get that chance in real life. So to be able to do that in that episode was so much fun because we chat with each other all the time. We make jokes about how awesome it would be to roll together on an ambulance. Well, we got to live that out last night. So or in that episode we just filmed. So that was my favorite part. I'm so looking forward to all of you in the audience getting to experience it. And I encourage you all, please go over to the EMS 2020 podcast, to wherever podcasts are found, and subscribe to their podcast. And then you'll get notified when our episode goes live. We think it might be a couple of weeks, but just giving you a heads up. So hopefully you'll look forward to it. And we'll get to share that with all of y'all when it drops in a couple of weeks.
I can't wait.
It's gonna be exciting.
It's super exciting. And I think it'll be, something that people really enjoy because we like to nerd out here on the Ride Along EMT School podcast.
No, do we?
Yes, we do. Every once in a while. But all right, so what are we talking about this week, Max? Because we
are talking about heat and cold emergencies.
Yes, that is what we're talking about because we're in the environmental emergencies chapter. This week is heat and cold.
Yeah,
which is enough.
And then I mean, it's extensive,
right?
I wouldn't have thought it would be as extensive as it is, but as I started rolling through the notes, I'm like, oh, okay. There's a lot of information to impart here.
Yeah, like there's a lot in what happens when the body starts getting too cold. There's a lot that happens when the body starts getting too hot, and then they had the nerve to take all of that stuff and combine it into a chapter with water and drowning, diving accidents, not just diving into a pool type of diving, but also like the scuba diving type of diving. Altitude emergencies, which have stumped us in the past because both Max and I never thought that acute mountain sickness wasn't a thing.
Totally thought it was made up.
It sounds so made up, but that's,
it does.
Like those types of altitude emergencies. And then they also threw in like, oh, being that you're outside, let's throw in anything else that could happen outside, like insect bites and stings and snake bites and all that stuff.
I see a review of anaphylaxis coming up.
Yeah. I'm betting we're probably going to talk about that next week. on the next episode. So this week is heat and cold. Next week's going to be the rest of outdoor environmental emergencies, which is fun stuff. I do like talking about stuff that happens, but I do think heat and cold are so inherent in what we do.
Yeah.
Like every time we go out on like that, I've gone out in the ambulance, it's usually maybe not overtly stated, but you know, we've learned about the importance of hypothermia before in like the lethal trauma triad, right?
Yep.
How like it's an important aspect of shock, keeping patients warm, and we're constantly like making sure that patients stay warm. You know, with environmental controls, with blankets and all these things. And we're going to talk about all of that tonight.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But first, we have your medical term of the week, sir.
Do we?
What do you got for us?
Do I have to do a medical term of the week? Am I?
Yes,
I'm obligated. I guess we're kind of committed to this format now.
Yes.
We're 38 episodes in. We've done the same thing every time. I still like was like, why did I make myself do the upfront section? I do find that it has value because it's nice for us to have a central concept to pull from for the discussion notes of the meat and potatoes section. I guess that's what we're calling it now. But you know, to set us up, the medical term of this week is active and passive rewarming and cooling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which you would think is probably self-explanatory. Like, okay, but breaking it down by the words that are in it, okay, we're talking about heating the body and cooling the body. Okay, we do that. We probably were very familiar with those things before we even got into EMS. It's what we do as humans. We add heat and we add cold, or we try to keep ourselves warm and we try to keep ourselves cool all the time.
Yep.
But what is the difference between active and passive, and when are we using them? Because that's a key thing of understanding the environmental emergencies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple of definitions to throw out there. So first is rewarming and cooling. That we should be pretty familiar with. So those are just methods used to restore normal body temperature. Usually in cases of hypothermia, so low thermia or low body temperature, or hyperthermia, which is high body temperature. So we're talking about, hey, how do we regulate and bring the body back to its proper temperature when it's too hot or too cold? All right, so we know heating and cooling. Cool. Let's call the HVAC guy and we're done. Like we could just
That's all we have to do, right?
Yeah. But okay, what is the difference between passive and active? And this is the kind of crux of this week's medical term. Passive, I think every human on Earth, I think, does some form of passive cooling pretty much constantly throughout the day.
Yep.
It's what we do to stay cool in the summer. We're going to wear, we're going to reduce the amount of clothes that we're wearing. We're going to maybe put ourselves into a cooler environment so that we don't get too hot. In the winter, if we're cold, we put on a jacket or we wear a blanket or we go inside where it's warmer. So we kind of approach it from a passive perspective, right? So these are body changes. This is when we change the temperature of the body by its own methodology, right? Like our body, we're warm-blooded animals and we sweat. So we have the ability to warm ourselves up internally or cool ourselves down through our own body processes. Okay, that's passive. But what about active? Well, it's when we take heat or cold and we apply it. So, all right, this isn't going fast enough, right? Somebody's really, really cold. Well, we need to start giving them some help because their body may not be able to produce enough heat to bring them back to a proper temperature fast enough. So we apply external heat or external cooling as a source to directly change body temperature, right? So,
and we talked about that in a tool of the trade.
We did
earlier in the season.
Yeah. Actually, so one of our tools of the trade, sponsored by that was Cambridge Sensors,
Mhm.
also known as Microdot. Amazing people. You should check them
Yes.
out. We talked about Rapid Cool, right? The cold
Mhm.
packs. Well, they have similar products called Rapid Heat. Those are heat
Mhm.
packs, right? So we can take those types of devices and add them to a body in, say, the armpits or in the groin area, behind the neck, basically where we have arteries and major vessels that are close to the skin. And you can use that as a method to add some heat to the blood as it's pumping around the body, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Active heating and cooling. But really, why does it matter? That's what we like to break down on the show, or especially in this section, because, well, it's great to know how to do a bunch of things, but when should you do them is the important thing to grasp, right? So it's really determined by how aggressively you want to treat temperature problems. How severe is it? Like, how emergent is the problem? If somebody is like mildly hypothermic, like, oh, they're cold, maybe their body temperature's dropping a little bit, they're showing some form, and we're gonna talk about the details of hypothermia. But say we're seeing some of those early signs of hypothermia, well, the easiest thing we're gonna do is, before it gets too bad, we'll do some passive rewarming, right? We'll take them in out of the cold. We'll give them a blanket, right? We'll have their body start compensating for the heat loss on its own, and hopefully they, come up real quick. Same thing for the heat side. If someone's getting too hot, before they start having a heat emergency, we're going to give them maybe we'll take off some clothing.
Right.
Oh, you're wearing a long sleeve shirt and pants. Why don't we ditch those for a minute and let's get some airflow on you. Let's get you out of the sun. Let's sit you on the ground over here by this tree where there's a nice breeze, and we'll let your body sweat and that evaporation, which we'll talk about forms of heat loss in a minute. But we'll allow that to kind of work its magic, and your body will do what it's supposed to do to help kind of regulate its own temperature. So that's what we'll do for the passive side. Okay, well, what if they're more serious? What if they've already started progressing deep into like, one of the things we'll talk about is like altered mental status. Hypothermia and hyperthermia both can lead to altered mental status. So if we're starting to see those things, more serious signs, maybe even some damage, localized cold damage to the body, we're going to start taking an active rewarming approach, because the body's already at a point where it's can't rewarm itself in those particular instances. So it's really just these are different tools that we have at our disposal to kind of utilize when we need to. So a few different forms of passive approaches. Removing wet clothes, like when somebody's wet, this is a form of preventing of warming somebody up, right? So wet clothes, they make somebody cold. Okay, we're going to get out of those and we're put something dry on. That's passive rewarming. A dry blanket, putting them in a warm environment. Active rewarming, we're talking about external heat pads, hot water bottles, warm IV fluids, maybe on the ILS side, or the ALS side, I should say.
Yeah.
I know in my ambulance we have a fluid warmer. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. In general, people should be using warm fluids anyway. But yes, in this instance, definitely.
And so that could be part of the tool set with you and your ALS partner that they can pull from and go, okay, well, we have some nice warm body temperature fluid over here. We're going to start giving them that. And we'll rewarm them from the inside. EMS is super cool. There's some things where I'm like, this is pretty awesome that we can do those types of things. Where it helps kind of warm them from the inside out. On the cooling side, we have shade, which we mentioned before. That's important. If they're in the sun, removing the sun removing the big fiery ball of gas
that's slowly cooking them,
that provides all energy to our entire solar system and our planet. Maybe removing them from that in the shade is probably the best bet.
You're not supposed to just lay them out in the field on a reflective blanket so that not only do they get cooked from the top, but they can get cooked from the bottom.
Yeah, we'll just put them right inside of a solar oven and give them some bronzer, some baby oil to really kind of crisp them up. I still don't understand how there's people that don't use sunblock. But anyway, that's besides the point.
Oh, yeah.
So we have, if we're trying to cool somebody, removing them from the sun or their heat source, taking off some clothes. We're helping the body cool off naturally. And that's a situation where, okay, we see somebody and they're sweating. Well, sometimes that's a red flag for us. In this situation, that's what we want to happen. Like sweating is the way that the body's going to cool down. So that's a good sign. And then we have active cooling. So we have, this is when we're like, okay, we need to get this person inside of like some sort of cool environment. So either air conditioning or even better, some sort of like misting or cooling tent is huge, especially in the summer. I've been to a bunch of like concerts and some festivals where it's like, oh, that's a lifesaver. Just having a cool off spot that kind of helps rapidly lower temperatures. A mist and a fan, even just something blowing on people to help kind of with the evaporation. Cool water. The idea of like, oh, we're just going to put a towel around their neck and kind of dump some cool water, not super cold, because we don't want to like throw them into shock and make them like all of a sudden feel terrible. But that's important too. Like we can add to and supplement the body's ability to sweat, help encourage bringing the temperature down and also the evaporation. And we talked about before, like cool packs, putting those in the groin, the armpits, the neck, and those things to help kind of start bringing down the body temp internally, right? Like helping as the blood flowing, kind of cooling that down. So important thing to remember, and this is why there's multiple forms of heating and cooling. We don't want to overshoot. That's what we're trying to avoid, and that's what we want to make sure that we're shooting for, and why we don't want to necessarily like go full blast all the time in one thing, because there is the possibility of cooling somebody down that's overheated, and then if we don't back off of that somewhat at some point, or if we go too aggressive too quickly, they could wind up getting hypothermia. Right. Yeah. Like we can affect the body so much that we go in the wrong direction.
Yes. Yeah. You're always kind of walking the razor's edge when it's those severe temperature emergencies, right? Whether it is hot or cold. The mild ones, we can do the more passive aspect of these things, and that's usually good enough to get a situation under control. But when somebody is severe, we really have to balance out our approach because we can cause a whole bunch of issues if we're too fast and too aggressive about it.
Yeah. I thought one of the most interesting things that I had learned about when I had the opportunity to go to EMS World in 2025, I got to see a keynote address from the medical director of the Indianapolis 500, which for anybody interested, I'm sure there's probably some sort of public presentation where they can see this, but it's this huge logistical challenge where they basically, that raceway becomes like the third largest city in Indiana for a day. And you need all of the medical capabilities that you would need for a major metropolitan hospital.
Yep.
One of the things that they really kind of honed in on and said was one of their biggest assets was their ability to have BLS EMTs out in aid stations, strategically placed, and throughout the entire complex, which includes like, I don't know, dozens of square miles of racetrack and a
huge.
concert venue and parking lots and infield and outfield. Like it's hard to even describe the scale of one of those complexes. But what they would have is like BLS EMTs all out in there, and then they'd have aid stations where if people had those kind of heat emergencies, they were being taken care of right away from like an active cooling or, you know, water stations, and really just helping people at the point of care, you know, take those things instead of having to go like, okay, well, let's bring everybody and consolidate them at like a medical station or a hospital. Like they have temporary hospitals set up. So it's really, you know, that's a form of very simple care that we can provide as EMTs to say, hey, this is helping people in those types of situations where they're getting overheated or, you know, even too cold, you know, in events. But yeah, so that's our medical term of the week is
a good one.
Active and passive heating and cooling.
Hey, Jonathan, you want to start us off on our discussion? Good, sir.
I can
for the rest of the environmental emergencies.
Every last bit of it, nothing but Jonathan's voice.
So the fun thing is we're going to talk about hot and cold emergencies for the rest of the episode.
I know.
Right.
We could probably just cut, like, you know, you get the most important part up front. Oh, Mike just delivered the whole thing masterfully, and we could just skip. No, I mean, everyone knows the fun stuff comes at the end.
Well, let's take a second, and before we get super in depth on each of the heat and cold emergencies, let's talk about like human physiology and, you know, normal body temperature for a human being, right?
Oh,
so 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the normal body temperature. 37 degrees centigrade. If you know
37
if you're from Europe.
If you're from across the pond or anywhere else in the world.
Metric system. Who uses metric system other than
losers?
Scientists.
EMS, when you start doing drug doses, is a whole lot.
Listen, just because you can divide by 10 easily does not make it better.
Yeah, well, you want to know what's weird?
I think that's exactly why it's better.
We want to talk about what's weird about it. Because we have to go from the empiric system to the metric system. When I'm calculating weight, it's 2.2 pounds, and that's not an completely even way to divide things. So,
Jonathan, do you start
conversions are a pain in the butt?
At some point, do you start thinking about things like when you encounter people, and like if you're estimating weight, do you start thinking about it in kilograms?
I'm still at the point where I'll like look at them and be like, they're about 150 pounds, or, you know, they're like 186 pounds. And I'll be like, okay, well, that's like 90 kigs.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not great at doing math in my head. So I still have to sit down and kind of think about it for a minute. But no, I mean, like I will write that stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the weird thing is, it's like at work, sometimes they'll dispatch us and one call will be, you know, in the empiric system, right? It'll be in pounds for the patient. And then the next call will be in kilograms. And it just depends on what you got.
Interesting.
So
do you work
sometimes
in
I'll have to calculate
Canada?
dosages. Huh?
Do you work in Montreal where you have to be bilingual and...
No, I mean, that's just medicine. Medicine uses the metric system, right?
No, I know.
Like, but anyway, the whole point, right? We're talking about heat and cold exposure. So we have to kind of understand what our baseline for the temperature is for the normal human body, which is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but there was a book that really changed my mind about people surviving outdoors, right? When we talk about heat or, you know, cold injuries, you know, a lot of this is going to be related to people being outside, right? Where the temperature is not as controlled.
You would think.
Isn't controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was a book by a guy named Cody Lundeen that he had a show on Discovery Channel called Dual Survival, but he wrote several books, and one of his books is 98.6 Degrees: How to Keep Your Ass Alive. And the whole premise of the book is about thermoregulation, right? Maintaining that 98.6 degrees, and how exposure to the elements can influence that, one way or the other. How staying hydrated was important to maintaining, a properly functioning body, as well as how caloric intake played into that. And so that really changed my mind when I started looking at heat and cold emergencies, and kind of just existing out in the broad world of the natural world.
I'm going to,
and
I have to mention this. It is eating at me, because while all of that information may be incredibly awesome about exposure in the outdoors and how to survive it, coming from Cody Lundeen, it is insane.
Right, because he doesn't wear shoes.
Because he was the guy that refused to wear shoes. Like,
he had socks on.
No, well, it doesn't matter if he has socks on. I'm sorry. No, like as an avid outdoorsman and somebody that has spent so much of my life outdoors, the fact that guy was like, no, I'm going to put us in a situation where I have to walk around without shoes. No, like it's just hilarious that he's the guy that's like, writes a probably a really well written and smart book on like how to survive, like, keeping your body to exposure.
I'm not sure he would advise other people do it, but
how funny would it be? It's like every episode the producers are like, put the socks on. He's like, I don't want to wear the socks. Why would I wear my shoes?
There were episodes of that show where they were in winter with snow. I'm pretty sure he wanted to wear the socks.
Yeah.
But
there were some episodes where he would wear something like a moccasin or something.
Yeah.
He used to wear wool socks sometimes.
Yeah. He wore wool socks when it was cooler, and then like no shoes whatsoever in the summer. I'm like, this guy is crazy.
Yes.
I will say, if you just to add on there, Jonathan, sorry, I know this is a tangent,
You're
but
good.
I love trainers out there. Dave Canterbury, who is the other guy on that show, has a great school called the Pathfinder School, I believe, and he teaches he teaches some good outdoor training stuff. But anyway, sorry, I was just like, man, Cody Lundeen. I thought he was super smart on that show, but I'm like, I just couldn't. Sometimes I'm screaming at the screen like, oh, that's great, but put shoes on.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, it's television. He's got to have his shtick.
Yep.
But like the book is very, very well written. But like I said, it really changed my mindset when I thought about the bigger picture of us as human beings maintaining our core body temperature of 98.6 degrees. And so I think, we're talking about this from an emergency medicine standpoint. By the time we have been dispatched to respond and are responding, this person, these things weren't taken care of. So we've got to kind of, we're behind the 8 ball. And so if we kind of understand some of these things, we can understand how to take care of these folks when we get to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, we'll talk about the cold first. So as a person's body temperature starts to drop, their metabolism slows down, right? Their mental status is going to start to decline. They're going to start to get kind of fuzzy headed.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when we start to get really, really cold, your heart stops functioning appropriately, and can be very, very sensitive to any jarring or even further drops in temperature, which could lead to a cardiac arrest. Right. And so we have if people are way far down the line of hypothermia, we have got to be very careful with them. But it's like I said, while we're talking about active and passive warming, we're always kind of on that razor's edge of being aggressive, but not being too aggressive with our active measures.
Yeah.
So, Max, why don't you tell us a little bit about heat loss and how we lose heat in the body?
Yes, there's a couple different ways it happens. One is radiation, and that's just heat loss to the surrounding air. And it doesn't necessarily need to have contact with anything; it can just be the cold air running across your skin.
Well, so yeah, like from a radiation standpoint, I think a good parallel, if you want to understand what radiation is the sun. So
Yes.
everything that we feel, like when we're outside, even though it's not like the wind isn't blowing on us, just feeling heat coming from a like if you walk by an electric stove or an electric heater.
Yep.
When you walk by that thing, you're like, oh, that's warm. I can feel it over here. There's no wind moving, but that's radiation.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're feeling the rays coming off of something.
Yeah.
So we lose heat all the time. It's why we
all
have
the time.
to eat.
Yeah. That's why you see, like, when someone in a cold day, you'll see the steam coming off their head if they're hot enough, if it's cold enough outside.
Yeah.
So let me add. So a couple of these that we're going to talk about. We talked about when we're talking about oxygen cylinders and filling them. We talked about like cascade systems and how they want to equalize. Is that what happens with the temperature? That sounds like that's what happens with the temperature, right? The temperature wants to equalize across the board with different things.
Yeah, in science in general, everything wants to be at an equilibrium, right? So in a cold environment, we're hot. And then
it's cold,
and
your body's trying to get to that even point.
Yeah, heat will always move from something that's hot to something that's cold. Like this is like the grade school or like the high school physics stuff, right? Like energy always moves from a warm thing to a cold thing.
Yep. And then you have conduction. So now this is heat loss through direct contact. And that's that classic thing of you don't lay the guy down on the cold ground.
Exactly.
Put something in between them and the ground so that the ground's not pulling the warmth out of them.
Yeah, and conduction can be something that is solid, like it could be the ground, or it can be like, a patient that is in water, right? So like water being submersed in water is conduction, because like the heat loss is going straight from your body to something that's contacting it, which is the water.
And you could have water that you might think is warm as 80 degrees, but if you're in it long enough, you're going to lose enough heat that it's going to put you in a hypothermic state. Yeah. And then you have convection. So convection is where it's from air or water moving across your body. And that the classic thing is wind chill. You come outside and you have the actual cold of the environment, and then that wind kicks up and it just feels that much worse.
Yeah. And so water also does fall into the convection category. Because if that water moves, you used to do cold plunges, right, Max?
So there's cold plunges where you get in the water, and the simple act, as silly as it sounds, of just moving your hands in the water makes it so much worse.
Yeah.
It sucks anyway. It's horrible. But that movement of that water just makes it that much more impactful.
Right. So the conduction happens from the physical touch to a medium. However, if there's absolutely no movement in that medium, like air or in water, right around the surface warms up, and then you don't lose as much heat because it's staying there. But as soon as you add movement to that medium, like an immersion circulator into a cold plunge tank, or I don't know, the first thing that pops in my head is like sous vide. I don't know if you guys have ever cooked something using sous vide. As soon as you start moving the water around, it changes the game completely, and then you have convection.
Absolutely. And then evaporation, and that's heat loss when we sweat or when moisture evaporates. And same thing, like as your body tries to compensate for that difference, you're sweating. Yeah. You're trying to cool yourself down, and that's where you get the evaporation.
Yeah, and that's I always found that fascinating, and the chemical property, the physics behind it, because the energy is how air conditioners work, is through evaporation. Yeah. Basically, you're like the energy being transferred to like turn the state of that liquid into a gas is pulling energy out of whatever it's touching. So like it is actively cooling by like a chemical change, or not a chemical change, but a state in matter. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, that's pretty cool.
And we talked about like passive ways of helping, and that's why removing wet clothing is so important, because it's going to increase that heat loss. And then you have wind and water exposure that accelerate hypothermia as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Well,
like those. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, the other aspect about it, so like we're talking kind of about the heat loss aspect of things, but these are also ways that potentially somebody could be exposed to heat as well, right? We think about the sun, that would be radiating down on somebody.
Yep.
They can conduct on a hot surface, right? If you've ever sat on like a black top in the middle of summer, it's damn near impossible to sit on it.
It's like
you're
sitting
gonna
on a
cook
frying
yourself.
pan, right? Like you can get direct burns from that.
Yeah, 100%. And then convection. If you've got hot air blowing on you, maybe that's something that's going on.
Like being out in the desert, like that's or probably a good example is like a hot tub. The reason hot tubs are like, there's been so many stories of people that have passed out from basically heat exhaustion in hot tubs because they just sit in them for too long and it raises their body temperature.
Right.
And it's moving, it's circulating that's why they have pumps in those things.
Yeah. And then like in this instance, a lack of evaporation, right? Evaporation in itself is a cooling kind of thing. So a lack of evaporation would cause heat to be retained.
Yeah, I wonder, I bet you there's probably some science nerd out there who's probably like, no, actually, there's a way to add heat through evaporation. Please let us know. I would love to know that.
If you know.
Yeah, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I'm pretty sure evaporation's more centered around the idea of like heat being drawn away. But that heat has to go somewhere. So there might be an application to the human body where that heat is then being transferred back in. I don't know.
I almost wonder if
one of those running suits. Like the sweatsuits?
Yeah.
Well, that's lack of evaporation, right? Like well, that's a few things. And that also, which I don't even think we have necessarily in our plan of talking about tonight, but insulation that's essentially what you're doing. You're insulating the body from any form of that heat escaping.
Yep.
So there's a few things going on there because your body is trying to expel heat in a bunch of different ways through the four ways we just talked about. Yeah. But you're preventing it. So
exactly.
But yeah, so 4 different methods, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about them some. So the radiation, conduction, convection, and evaporation, right?
Yep.
But I think would probably be a good place to start is like talking about hypothermia itself, right?
Yeah,
sure.
Like, how do we classify it? So we know the body can lose heat or gain heat, I guess. But and we know what the temperature should be, 98.6 degrees, or at least that's what my mom told me whenever she would take my temperature when I tried to get out of going to school. And
somehow when mine was 100.1, it was still just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. You're fine.
Yeah. You're fine. Go to school.
If it's not over 104, you're going to school. I'm pretty sure that's how other kids get sick, Mom. But actually, hypothermia has a pretty big spread from. So if our target is 98.6 degrees, technically hypothermia is when the body temperature falls below 95 degrees, which is, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't seem like it's that much. 3 degrees. It's about 3%, but that 3% can really play havoc. And I would bet you probably could start having signs of hypothermia before that, because
oh yeah, I'm sure.
Really, I think this is an important thing to kind of pause and talk about for a second. While temperature is important, and it is there is a clinical definition of hypothermia is less than 95 degrees. This is really one of those conditions that we look for by symptoms, because it's if they're shivering and they're cold and they're showing signs of altered mental status, it's pretty good sign that they are hypothermic. But
yeah, for sure.
You may not have a thermometer handy to be able to kind of check, but also that's not a true reading of temperature, because
Nope.
that you're taking either a tympanic reading or a skin reading or a temporal reading, like, meaning like the over the temple, in the ear, on the forehead, maybe even getting an oral. But those aren't your core temperature. Those,
Nope.
No.
it's not representative of like, your actual body temp. But so we're gonna definitely pay attention to the symptoms.
I think it's another example of treat the patient.
Yes.
Not your reading.
Not the
on
monitor,
whatever.
not the
Yeah.
thermometer.
Yep.
Or as Jonathan's, was it your dad calls it, the thermometer?
The thermometer, yeah.
Nice.
All right. So what happens? What are these things? Like, what are the things that happen? Jonathan mentioned it before. The brain function slows as the body temperature starts dropping. The heart becomes irritable. Everything he just talked about, right? Here's the thing to keep in mind, that hypothermia can occur in even moderately cold environments. It could even happen in environments that you might think are warm.
Right.
We've seen that happen. We've seen like people in a seemingly, temperate environment all of a sudden suffering from hypothermia because there's other factors at play, right?
Yep.
Right.
So what are the things that put people at risk for hypothermia? Biggest one I would say is the stuff that encourages that evaporation. So like wet clothing, big, wind exposure, which again is that convection, which transfers heat away very quickly, but it's also exasperates the evaporation side of it too.
Right.
So if they're wet and it's windy, then it's very easy for somebody to become hypothermic, even in a situation where it's warm, right? The length of exposure, like how long they've been in that environment, because you can pretty much survive anything for like a couple of seconds. There's people that go jump into like cold plunges, and they're fine. They don't get hypothermia because your body can compensate for that for a certain length of time. People who are fatigued, they're going to be more susceptible to it. If they have poor nutrition, if they're not staying up on whether they're hydrating, alcohol use is a huge factor. Yeah. Like if you're drinking outdoors in the winter, that's a recipe for disaster in terms of, A, you're going to be messing up your own decision-making skills, but B, it could make you suffer from hypothermia faster.
You don't thermoregulate because it's dehydrating you, and it's a whole thing.
Oh yeah.
That thing of like, have a shot of bourbon to warm you up. That's a myth.
Yeah.
Completely a myth.
Although it would be amazing if every time you were cold, there was a St. Bernard that came along with like some brandy
attached to his chest.
They haven't officially told me yet, but I'm pretty sure that as part of being in a ski patrol, that there is no dog that gets to run around and like give us little nips of alcohol throughout the day if we're feeling cold.
That is false advertising.
Which is tragic.
In every cartoon I have ever seen as a child.
Right.
How dare they?
Somebody lied to me, and I deserve recompense. But
exactly.
So along with some of those physical conditions, we also have demographics. So advanced age, like our geriatric populations, our seniors, like they are more susceptible to heat and cold. Those that are very young, because they just don't have the body compensation methods that adults do, right? Like their bodies aren't formed enough, or they're at an advanced age where it's kind of breaking down some. They don't have as good perfusion or circulation. Those are all things that come into play. Chronic illness is another one. Like there could be things that cause you to get hypothermia faster. And then probably the one that we're most familiar with, based off of the fact that we just wrapped up our trauma block, is trauma. Like, when you have an injury, you are more susceptible to start going into shock, and the shock is exasperated by hypothermia, and then hypothermia exasperates the shock, and it's like that kind of never-ending cycle where they just feed into each other.
I kind of picture it. It's that downhill slope that starts kind of gradual and just drops straight down.
Yeah. And the patients may not even realize it. They may feel like they're cold, but they just recognize things as being cold. They're just shivering, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they just keep getting worse, even though they feel like, they might start feeling like, oh, I don't feel so good. And then the crazy part about hypothermia or these heat emergencies is the altered mental status can then really play havoc on the decision making to then get yourself better. Like there are tons of stories of hypothermia patients being found without any clothes on.
Mm-hmm.
By their own accord. Like they have such an altered mental status that they start removing their clothing because they feel hot. And it's like, it does not allow you to make good decisions to help save yourself. Yeah. Okay. So we know the things that make people more predisposed, but what are those situations that can lead to them? And we talked about them. There's some that are very straightforward. There are some that are obvious, right? Cold weather, obvious.
Yep.
Snow exposure, pretty obvious. Like, hey, I'm going to go out and play in the snow. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you need to be aware of some hypothermia, right? Yeah. Immersion in cold water. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
Hey, this is cold. Well, guess what? Your body needs to be at 98.6 degrees. As soon as you go in that thing, it's going to start leaching heat out of your body, right? Okay. Those are the easy ones. Obvious, right?
Yeah.
We have subtle ones, which
come on.
are the hard ones because they're the ones that you're like, wait, really? So you can get hypothermia from being indoors in air conditioning.
I have 100% been in a classroom where I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. And by the end of it, I was shivering as if I was outside in a snowstorm. 100% has happened.
Yeah, because all that needs to happen is a imbalance of cold and your body not compensating and not keeping up with that heat transfer, right?
Right.
So a cool indoor environment can lead to hypothermia, which is probably one that's like, really? Yeah, for real. Inadequate heating, which kind of goes along with the cold environments. But, if you're in a cold environment, okay, you think you're keeping warm, but it's just not keeping up, right? So you think you're warm, but it's just not enough.
Or I'm sure we're going to see calls where we have people that can't afford the oil bill.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get by as best as they can. And we get these prolonged snaps where it's like, 5 degrees outside for a week.
I see this a lot associated with poverty.
Yeah.
Like Max is saying. And in addition to that, we see people who are like, they're homeless, right? Like they don't they don't have anywhere to get in from the the cold weather. So that's a big issue as far as heat and cool emergencies.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we mentioned it before. Wet clothing, I think, is probably the easiest way for people to kind of get that sneaky form of hypothermia.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
In any environment, almost, if you get wet clothing and all of a sudden the wind picks up, you feel cold, right? And if you feel cold, that means that you're probably susceptible to hypothermia because that's what your skin does. It's your early warning system for, hey, you're going to lose heat.
Change this.
Yeah. Like you warm yourself up, and just the simple act of drying yourself off can make a life saving decision, right?
Yeah.
So the wet clothing, regardless of environment, but even the warmer ones, it's like if there's wind blowing, if there's evaporation happening, that can be a subtle form. And while we're talking about wet, like, while cold water is obviously something that will draw heat out of you, even water that you consider to be warmer or tepid, like if it's below 95 degrees, eventually through the laws of thermodynamics, it is going to keep trying to leach energy out of you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So 95 degrees is actually feels pretty warm when you're inside of it for water. But if it's below that, it's technically trying to kill you slowly, right?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
but anything, even in that range, you can start developing hypothermia. But obviously the lower the temperature of the water. So even water that you're like, oh, this feels wonderful on a hot day. Well, it's, if you're in that for too long, you'll get hypothermia.
Let's talk about just perspiration,
Yes.
right? Just sweating. If you're in a cold environment and you don't have the appropriate clothing, or you've allowed your clothing to get soaked through due to perspiration, that's, a fluid-related cold injury.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the last one in this kind of subtle area is the lack of movement is probably going to be the one that really exacerbates like a cooler environment affecting you more than you think it should, because obviously we know that when the body moves, we generate more heat, right? Like if we're out walking, we may sweat, and we're generating more energy, and our muscles are producing heat and all this other stuff. Well, if we don't have that, if we're stuck still, if we have prolonged immobilization or an injury preventing movement, anything in that category, this is why the elderly are also more susceptible too, because they do not move as much. They're less mobile. The less you're moving, the more chance that cold is going to seep in and start lowering your body temp. So, those are kind of that's the overview of hypothermia.
Yep.
But Jonathan, why don't we hand it off to you, because I'm sure you've seen this a time or two. What are there different levels of hypothermia? Have you seen those out in the world?
Yeah. And most of the ones that I have seen are the more mild version to the moderate version. Fortunately, I haven't seen a whole lot of people that are way down towards that severe hypothermia. But let's talk about those different kind of designations and stages. So we got mild hypothermia. This is where you're going to be shivering. Your skin is going to be cold. Your heart rate's going to be increasing to pump blood a little faster to warm you up. You may feel a little bit anxious, right? Nobody likes being cold. And then you may have some impaired coordination, right? And everybody's had that sensation where like they're trying to like do something that requires dexterity with their hands, and they can't because their hands are just so cold. Right. Yeah. And so that combination of signs and symptoms are going to be in that mild category, right? This is like, hey, we need to start getting this person taken care of. We're already kind of ahead of things. And this is where like our more passive things, our passive rewarming would come into play. Because we just need to take them out of the environment that they're in. Yeah. Right.
I think this is
just getting
from a physiological standpoint, though. It's interesting to see, because even at these early stages of hypothermia, and I don't think we have a block to talk about exactly what happens in the body when this happens, but you have that vasoconstriction starting to happen throughout the body, because your body's trying to pull all that stuff in towards the core, all of your warm blood. It's like, hey, screw the limbs, right? Like we don't need those in the long run, and you'll start losing perfusion out to that's why you start feeling sluggish, right? Like you mentioned, you're losing that coordination is because your body's trying to keep all of that good stuff inside, and it's saying, let's start cutting bait on on all this stuff on the extremities. Yeah. I find that super interesting.
Yeah. Did you guys remember the Christopher Nolan Batman Begins movie where Bruce Wayne is training with who he doesn't know he's Ra's al Ghul, but he's Ra's al Ghul. Yes. Yeah, and he falls into the cold water. And so Bruce is like rubbing his arms, and then Ra's al Ghul's like, rub your chest instead, right? We're trying to protect, the core is trying to protect the body. And so he's trying to warm the core up, or tells Bruce to warm the core up before worrying about the arms.
Yeah.
Anyway, that just stuff like that sticks in my brain when we talk about stuff like this.
Best Batman movie, bar none.
I would agree.
Sure. What, Batman Begins?
Yeah, it's
Well, okay. So I'm okay. Let's break it down. Sorry, Jonathan. Like we've got Adam West, we've got Michael Keaton, we've got Christian Bale, we've got whoever else came after
Val
Christian.
Kilmer and George Clooney.
Oh, right. Yeah, Val Kilmer,
No.
Clooney.
Let's not even
you've
consider them.
And then you've got Ben Affleck.
Ben
and
Affleck.
Then you have and then you have
Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have a whole generation, different generations of Batman. When I say that was the best Batman, I mean just the Christopher Nolan, Christian Bale Batman is by far the best Batman series.
Yes, 100%.
I'm gonna disagree and say Batman the Animated Series with Kevin Conroy doing the voice of Bruce Wayne Batman.
Kevin
was good.
Conroy is really good. He man, that dude's voice is that is Batman. When you hear that, it's like, dude, that dude is Batman. However,
we're talking about people that are acting in a movie.
I know.
So
I know.
Here's the top goes to Christian Bale.
Mm-hmm.
He gets the Oscar
by far.
Right? Number 2. Who do you go number 2?
So, okay, I can go both ways with this. There is an argument for what's his face? Oh shit, my brain. No, the one afterwards.
Val
Batman
Kilmer
versus Superman.
Val Kilmer.
No.
George Clooney.
No, the one after the Christopher Nolan series.
Oh,
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck.
Thank you. There is an argument for that, but Michael Keaton playing Batman, who everyone was like, Michael Keaton is Batman. He blew it out of the water, and then he plays old Batman too.
Oh, right, because there was like a Flash movie where he's old Batman,
and the combination of the old Batman and the one they played earlier puts him at number 2.
Yeah,
just does.
I think. I mean, those are very different films.
Mm-hmm.
The Keaton, Tim Burton and with Michael Keaton Batmans, and then the Christopher Nolan, Christian Bale Batman. The very very different movies.
they're totally
really sent us off the rails.
Yeah, off the rails. Anyway, sorry. Michael Keaton deserves his due. He is the second best Batman.
Yes.
But back to hypothermia, which we will tie into this discussion with Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Do you know what? And Robin.
Do you know what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. It's the best line. It's the best villain line in any Batman movie.
Chill out.
All right, sorry, Jonathan. Right. So we were talking about the stage of hypothermia.
I started this.
You brought us through. You brought us through mild hypothermia. Yeah. What else do we have?
So let's talk about moderate hypothermia. So we start getting more of an altered mental status, right? You're just not making good decisions. This is where, if you're out in the in the elements, in the woods, and nobody's there with you, this is where things really, really get dangerous because you're not making good decisions with having an altered mental status. Surprisingly, as you start into this moderate hypothermia, you actually start to not shiver as much, and you start to slow your speech down. Where you were tachycardic before, right? You had a rapid heart rate. Now your heart's gonna start to slow down, and we're gonna get into some bradycardia. And then you're gonna start to have a decreased respiratory rate, right? The body is in shock at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna. This is a true emergency. Not that mild hypothermia isn't an emergency, but we can very quickly and fairly easily deal with that. But this is when we start to hey, this is an emergency. We need to start actively warming these people.
Yeah.
And then we start to get into severe hypothermia. Somebody may lose consciousness, and may not be responsive. You're going to get super slow respirations, very weak pulses. We've already kind of talked about cardiac problems that can occur. This is when we start to see our major cardiac dysrhythmias, and the biggest potential for cardiac arrest exists in this severe hypothermia. We have got to actively warm these folks, but then we also have to be very careful with not moving them too rapidly and not heating them up too fast, right? We do need to actively warm them, but we don't want it to be too fast, because the sudden shift in temperature could cause cardiac arrest. So,
I think that's a pretty good rundown of like things to look for.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's basically a whole bunch. But I guess my question for you is: are we looking for all of them, or some of them, or do you think that they might happen some at a time, or like?
I think it's going to depend on the person, right? Like these are like, we're talking about the stages. I think it truly is going to depend on the generalized health of the person, as to how well they are able to compensate. But I've seen a lot of like teenagers and kids, who've been in outdoor programs and then they get lost, and then we've seen some adults, and actually we were all together and we saw one of our classmates or students in a class succumb to hypothermia, and he was definitely in the, I would say, moderate stage of hypothermia. Like he was right on the cusp of that. Like we would have maybe had to take him somewhere if we hadn't found him, and
And as an example,
part of the reason being is poor decision making. Like he got to a point where he just was not making the right choices, and if he had been in a better mental state, I think he never would have gotten to the point that he got to.
And some of that was, the desire for the class and the training we were in, the desire, because he was in charge of the team, and the desire to take care of his guys, and to also just push forward and accomplish the tasks that we were all trying to accomplish. And so that led to not making good decisions. That was an added factor.
Right. But that's a good example of, hey, we could put a couple of these threads together where it's like, hey, we saw physiological conditions that we were looking for, right? Like, seeing some signs of the things that we're seeing, but not all of them, right? Like, you may not have seen, while there may be some decision making which led to further risk in hypothermia. I don't know. I don't know if that would have been classified as altered mental status, right?
Right.
Like, So it's just to say that, hey, some of them may exist, others may not exist. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't treat them as, for the form of hypothermia that it is.
Right. Yeah. You may not see all of these, but all of these could be indicators that in conjunction with the context of the call. One of the things that we start to see is with older people, they will fall, and oftentimes they'll fall and not have access to a telephone. And I had a call while I was in paramedic school where a lady that I knew, she fell outside getting some, of all things, some firewood. And when she fell, she had a femur fracture and a closed femur fracture, and she could not get up. And then her phone was in the house. I mean, it was like, 25 yards away. But she couldn't get in the house.
Yeah.
And eventually somebody came by and saw her, but she spent, depending on asking her, because this is where we get into the altered mental status, she was not a good historian at that point. She said she'd went out the night before, but then talking to some other people was like, well, no, she'd went out early in the morning. So it just depends on, which story you believe, but she'd been out and she had started down hypothermia, and trauma was a factor in this as well. So,
Right.
So speaking of different, scenarios, right? It sounds like we have some things that we can do. Like we've talked about some of those treatments, right? And it depends on what we're seeing from the patient.
Yeah.
So it sounds like from what I've gathered and what they kind of walked us through in this chapter is, it's like really the care scenarios kind of fall into two categories. You have like alert and responding appropriately, or unresponsive and not responding appropriately, right? So Max, why don't you take us through, like, if we run into a patient who we suspect of hypothermia, showing signs, but they're alert, like they're like the scenario we were talking about with our fellow student. What are some of those care priorities and things that we're looking to do from a treatment standpoint?
Well, so the first thing would be get them out of the environment they're in. If the environment is causing the issue, get them out of it. Get them to a place where it is warmer, whether it's the back of the ambulance or just generally inside versus outside.
Or in a car.
That has in a car. Exactly. Put the heat on. Remove the wet clothing. Like get that source off of them so that they can get actively warmed. Dry them as well. Apply some warm blankets. Any kind of insulation you can give them between the outside environment and their skin is going to help their body start to do what it's supposed to be doing.
Right. So some of that passive warming.
Exactly. And then we talked about the warm packs. Start if they're at that point, start them on that. Get it in their areas where it's the armpits, the groin, the neck, areas where that circulation is close to the skin, and try getting the blood warmed as it's moving through their body. If you can, give them some warm oral fluids, assuming that they're conscious and they're able to swallow. And that's also going to be based on your protocol, so just be mindful of that. And then monitor their mental status. Like, pay attention to where they're at. Pay attention to how responsive they are, how they're responding to you. And just continue to monitor their vital signs. Like, treat the patient, watch their symptoms, see if they improve, see if they get worse. And then get them moving. If you think it's something where transport is important, get them moving.
Yeah. One of the things I thought was really interesting that they told us, like, in one breath they're saying, "Hey, give them some warm oral fluids," like, but in the other breath they're like, "Avoid caffeine." I'm like, what adult? Like, but all the good things that you drink warm usually have caffeine in them.
Yes, they do.
Tea, coffee.
Some tea. If we look at the caffeine that's in, like, it's very, very minimal in like a black or a green tea. But that's fine.
But honestly, even if you can just microwave a cup of water, and just have them sip the warm water.
I think this is one of the key moments. Hot chocolate for the win. Like,
absolutely,
hot chocolate makes everyone feel better when they're cold.
It does, no matter what.
Even people who don't like chocolate, they're like, "Would you like some hot?" Yes, I would like some hot chocolate. Can you have the marshmallows in there, please? Like, that would be some whipped cream on top. That should be in a BLS ambulance. I mean, right next to the narcotics safe should be like a Swiss Miss container,
a little hot cocoa machine.
Hot cocoa machine.
Listen, I know exactly how that would be abused immediately.
I'm okay with this.
We rationed you for a month of coffee for patients, and you've already gone through it. We're not sure. Sir, I'm sorry. We just had a lot of walk-ins. I don't know what to say.
All right. So that's for patients that have that are responding, right? And they fall into that kind of moderate category. But what about if they are unresponsive? Like, they're not with it. They're either completely unconscious, or they are severely compromised from like an altered mental status. What do we do then?
So then you're looking at a different way of approaching the patient. You got to handle them gently. From what I understand, if you move them too quickly, you can have cold blood circulate that's been pooling. That's I'm asking Jonathan, like,
Well, I mean, yeah, that would be a thing, right? We talked about like slowing down of in movement and things like that. But the other aspect of that is just the heart's not functioning well, and in the same way, like with our STEMI patients, right? Our patients having MIs, we don't want them to move because, or we want them to move as little as possible because
It adds more
just
stress.
any jarring
Got
motion
it.
or any exertion could cause their heart to have a deadly arrhythmia. So in this instance, that's what we're trying
Gotcha.
to prevent.
You got to make sure you're maintaining the area, whether it's with an adjunct or whether you're using a non-rebreather. You got to maintain the airway. Provide oxygen. This is the time when that non-rebreather goes on, and you get 15 milliliters per liters per minute. Assist with ventilations if needed. Get them on a BVM. And then begin active rewarming at the core.
Yeah.
And that could be the ALS side with fluids. It could be something as simple as what we talked about before with the hot packs. Make sure that you're monitoring their pulse. Make sure that you're paying attention to their vitals. And then get ready for cardiac arrest. Like ALS should already be moving if this is the case, and this is what you're finding. Because this easily can be you may need them on scene.
Yeah. So to me, it sounds like the big difference between the patients who are, it's a lot of monitoring. Like the thing that we have to really keep in mind when a patient is unresponsive is things that we always look for when they're unresponsive. Like making sure they can still breathe. We're doing the kind of primary assessment, but we're also adding in that, hey, we should probably treat them gentle based off of the kind of cardiac sensitivities.
This would also, like, if they're this far down the path of hypothermia, this is also probably an appropriate time to put your defibrillation pads on somebody.
Got it.
Like,
That's
just
that way you're ready if they arrest.
That way you're ready if they arrest. Yeah, because
Got it.
I mean, what they'll need at that point is circulation of blood through CPR and then electricity, rapid defibrillation if they can get it.
Now, let me ask you a question, Jonathan, because a cardiac monitor, or sorry, a defibrillator looks for the two shockable rhythms, right?
Right.
If a patient can be awake and have one of those rhythms, right?
Yes.
So if you put the pads on,
well, they're not going to be awake very long if they go into VFib, but
right, okay,
and then VTAC we got a little bit longer, but generally, yeah.
But essentially, we're putting the pads on, but we're not hitting that button until we suspect that they've gone into, like, we're not turning the AED on. Is that the procedure?
If it's an AED, yes. If it's a cardiac monitor,
well,
I'm going to have the cardiac
monitor.
Yeah, I'm going to have that on, but I'm not necessarily shocking them.
Yeah.
Just yet. But it's definitely like something you want to be prepared to do. That's the emphasis on that is just being prepared by placing those pads on those severe and extremely hypothermic patients.
Yeah.
Because of the risk of going into cardiac arrest.
And this is also a unique situation where we do not assume the patient is dead until they have been rewarmed.
Right. Well, okay. So that in the extreme hypothermia category, like we have mild, we have severe, and then we have, not mild and severe. We have what we do for responsive, what we do for unresponsive patients. And then we have this kind of last category of extreme hypothermia where we think somebody may have, essentially they're in cardiac arrest because of hypothermia. Right. We're maybe seeing those severe dysrhythmias. We're seeing the VFib, cardiac arrest. Like this is where those cardiac things are coming into play. We have to start actively rewarming them. But this is somebody that's been severely hypothermic, where their body temperature is really low. Obviously. This is where those stories come in of like people who have survived long periods, like submerged in water, or in a situation where they may have been supposedly dead, but all they've been is really cold and they haven't breathed for a long time. Like that severe hypothermia is something that we never make the assumption of like, okay, if they're that cold for that long,
Mm-hmm.
they're not dead until we've rewarmed them. They're not dead
right.
until they're warm and dead, right?
Yep.
It's an interesting one. I think we're going to revisit that next week as well a bit with
part of
drowning because
Yeah.
there's a different protocol and a different treatment for drowning versus drowning in cold water, which
Right.
pulls in some of this same thought with the extreme hypothermia. Cool. All right. So I think we have a good idea of how hypothermia works. I'm going to bring us right through into our next kind of category in the cold stuff. So the cold really falls into these two things. There's the general body, which is the hypothermia, your core temperature dropping, and then we have local cold injuries, which are, okay, we've been exposed to cold, but maybe maybe we're having hypothermia too at the same time, or maybe not. But now we start seeing what the effects are to the extremities and other parts of our body that start losing heat, in either a mild form or an extreme form.
Right.
And this is kind of where we start getting into terms like frostbite. A lot of people are familiar with the idea of frostbite, or even one that I've heard interchangeably used sometimes with the idea of a local quote unquote local cold injury. That mild form before we start getting into frostbite is sometimes referred to as frost nip, where it's like,
It's just a little nip.
It's a little nippy. It's nippy outside. But yeah, frost nip is kind of like a precursor to frostbite. So we have some things to consider here. So what are we talking about? Fingers, toes, nose, eyes, shoulders, knees, and toes. It's all the it's the little things that are on the extremities that you'll start seeing at first. So toes, infamous for getting frostbite.
Yes.
Fingers, sometimes not as infamous as the toe. Like, I think it happens less than toes because usually we're using our fingers a lot and sticking them inside near our core. We can't do that with our feet. But noses, ears, those cheeks get frostbite as well. Like, you can only cover those things up so much when you're in extreme cold and they start, they start getting damaged by the cold. And essentially this is just freezing tissue. Like, our tissue, the soft tissue in our body has gotten so cold that it starts to freeze. The freezing basically kills the cells. It causes damage, cellular damage. And then, it either freezes them further, or the damage is what we incur from that extreme cold. So we're seeing that and unfortunately, if it gets to a certain point, frostbite is permanent. Like, it does not, you don't get the finger back once it falls off, apparently.
Quick story time, just real quick. So the first time I visited my grandmother overseas, we were going through pictures, and she had a picture of her uncle, and he was missing his nose, one of his ears, 3 of his fingers, and half his toes. And there were all these pictures. I said to her, was he in World War I? Like what happened? And she said, no, he was an avid alpine climber. And it was very common that they would come back with these injuries. And, it was like just no big deal. Like, this is what happens because this is the thing that they like to do.
Yeah.
But looking at him, like, he was just missing pieces.
Yeah. I would have told people I got into a fight with a tiger.
I like that better.
Personally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad.
Well, he was long dead, so he wasn't there to tell the story. So she decided to not give a dramatic end to it.
Mike gets in a fight with a tiger. I am never going to financially recover from this.
Oh, Joe Exotic. What a great random Netflix pandemic series.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. If anybody out there hasn't seen it, Tiger King is just a fascinating watch.
And I think it's like authentic reality TV. I don't think any of that was
No,
produced.
it's authentic reality TV because it is probably not authentic in any way. It's like it's as contrived as Making a Murderer was. Like,
yes.
Although another great show. Like, if you just want to sit down and just absorb salaciousness, watch those things. They're great. Carol Baskins, she's the worst.
She's the best.
All right. So we're talking about local cold injuries, right? What are we looking for? Like, those are the what are the signs that we're seeing? Well, it falls into a couple of categories. We've got early and superficial versus more severe, when like the frostbite. So for the early stuff, we might see pale skin, numbness. We were talking about it before, right? We're starting to lose circulation to our extremities. It happens first in our fingertips. We start getting numbness, tingling, maybe a burning sensation. I've felt this many a times on like my nose and my ears. Like those are the signs that you're losing temperature and you're starting to get towards a localized cold injury. You might even see mild swelling, from those areas. And the skin may start appearing different. It may start looking red, or it could start moving towards like white or waxy, which is not good. And the treatment for this stuff it's pretty simple at this point, right? Like get out of the cold.
Yeah.
Easy. Protect the affected area. Put some earmuffs on. Like as ridiculous as the idea of earmuffs are, I mean, I guess I'm kind of wearing earmuffs right now, but
you are.
But the idea of
as
going
am
out,
I.
yeah, like I never understood earmuffs. Just put a hat on. But like
when I was a cop, we had earmuffs. Like they were a thing that you could wear, and like if you're outside, you couldn't wear like a toboggan, but you could wear earmuffs for whatever reason.
Really?
Policy wise,
That's
really
weird.
Silly. That's
weird.
really dumb. Like
all of our
hat for you.
Yeah, all of our police officers have to have immaculate hair. But,
yes,
but warm ears at the same time. Like
exactly.
So protecting the exposed area, like I don't know, put shoes on if you're walking through snow, Cody.
Hey, you don't tell me what to do.
Remove the wet clothing. Avoid rubbing the skin because rubbing skin can cause further damage.
Yeah.
Covering loosely with dry dressing that can add an insulative value in itself. But essentially, we're like make them warm and then try not to get them cold again because the cycling can make it worse. And then get them to care. Get them out of the cold. Right. Transport them as needed. Now, that's for the mild stuff. We're going to just jump right into the more severe stuff. So we're starting to get into frostbite, right?
Yes.
So what are the signs looking like? So instead of just kind of mild irritation, we're starting to see the forms of damage. So hard skin, numbness for sure. We're going to start seeing that white or gray skin, like it's losing all of its blood and all of its, life in it. It's going to start looking like a zombie. You may start seeing like blisters form because you're getting damage to the cells, and that's causing that kind of blister reaction. And the tissue may just start appearing to be frozen, like in its final form. Like it could just start getting so frozen through that it looks like a block of tissue that you took out of the freezer.
But the cold never bothered me anyway.
Let it go. Just let it go, Max.
Hey, do you guys want to build a snowman?
Do you want to build a snowman? Did you ever notice that song was the same as Papa, Can You Hear Me?
There's a lot of songs that apparently are exactly the same with some just slightly changed words.
Thank you, Deadpool and Wolverine, for putting that one in. All right. So basically, you're starting to see the signs of tissue death in frostbite. So what do we do? Protect it. Remove everything we did for mild. We're going to do for frostbite as well, right? Yeah. But we're going to start maybe separating fingers apart from each other. Like we're going to protect them so that they don't get like frozen or damaged together. You're going to, again, try to avoid refreezing, like get everything out of the cold. That's the first priority for everything. Again, avoiding massaging or rubbing because we feel like we can add heat into things by rubbing, but that can cause further damage. And we're going to start treating them like damaged tissue instead of just cold tissue. So, putting gauze on things, trying to keep them separated so that when they do start rewarming, that they're kind of already in a state of being, ready to be bandaged. So, but this is also where we're going to need to start doing some active rewarming. It's not just passive stuff. So you know, this is one of those categories of, will rewarming cause more damage? It can. If you're going too extreme with stuff, it can cause damage. But basically, if someone's starting to get frostbite, it could make sense to bust out a warm pack and start actively warming the fingers, the extremities, the toes, even parts of the ears, because we don't want to get to the point where those things get so damaged that they're unrecoverable. Right.
But the big thing is, though, we've got to consider, all right, I've got, 4 or 5 hot packs in my bag. Am I gonna be able to get this person to some place, and it's the chance of refreezing is basically 0? Because if there's a chance of refreezing, it is better just to kind of let things hang out, chill, so to speak. And because that rewarming or that warming and then refreezing is what really causes that damage.
Yeah. So we're doing the active heating, right? If there's no chance of refreezing, this is also where, this is one of the ones I learned as a Boy Scout was, all right, this may be the instance where you start immersing, body parts in warm water, not hot, not cold, but warm water. There's hardly ever any situation where you should ever put parts of the body in hot water.
Come on, you get it to a nice rolling boil, and then you just shove it in there.
Yeah, but I would say it's even better to err on the side of lower than hotter, because you don't want to start inducing any type of extreme temperature changes. But that'll like we talked about before, the convection and the conduction into that liquid medium is going to help kind of put some warmth back in the extremities. And really those are the big things. We can start doing that, but the heating pads, those are going to help a lot in that situation too. And we have those usually available.
This is what I know. If I get a hand that's frostbitten, I don't want any gauze to my fingers, because I want it to freeze into a knife hand.
Yeah.
Then I could then use for later down the line.
And then you can look like the Penguin from the Batman movie we were talking about before.
Yes, exactly.
Batman Returns.
Yes.
Danny DeVito. Yeah. Okay. I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah. Knife hand.
Oswald Cobblepot.
Yeah. Weird black gray knife hand.
Man.
All right. So that kind of brings us through the cold stuff, right? Like everything that we've been talking about so far is like, what happens if we start losing too much heat? But there's more.
There is.
Luckily,
it's almost like there's a whole other side of things.
The cold section is a little bit more than the heat section, but I think there's a lot of similar things we're going to talk about in here.
Sure.
But Jonathan, why don't you give us a kind of overview of heat exposure?
Sure. So when we talk about, heat emergencies, the big thing is going to be essentially we are raising our body temperature from that 98.6 degrees, that normal, homeostasis body temperature. We're raising it, and then in the same way that we talked about cold, we're not going to be able to regulate that temperature as well, and then we start to get lots of issues that are actually going to be they're going to have some similarities to some cold emergencies as well. But essentially, we're producing more heat, or we're exposed to more heat than we can cool down from. When we have the other aspect of dehydration, so sweating is a mechanism. We're kind of taking advantage of that evaporation and convection in those laws of thermodynamics, and at some point we're not going to be able to produce enough sweat to cool down, and dehydration is going to play a factor in that. And then just in general, prolonged exposure to high temperatures they're going to cause issues. Humidity is going to really reduce the effectiveness of our cooling.
Sure. It's funny when it's super humid, you sweat more.
Yeah,
but then it does nothing. Then you're just wet.
Yes.
What is
Chafing.
just in general where you guys are at? What's the relative humidity in the summer?
It's horrible.
Like
Like
34,000%
Well,
sometimes.
well, now,
so
well, here's
80
the
to
thing.
90% humidity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've changed it. They call it dew point now. Like they don't say what the percentage humidity is. It's like the dew point is whatever the hell it is.
Well,
But
dew
like,
point is a better. Once you start understanding dew point, it is a better form of understanding the feel outside because it's the relative temperature between how
want
much
my
the air can
humidity
hold.
percentages back.
I think it's easier for people to kind of understand relative
Yeah.
humidity, but no, Pennsylvania, I would say it's relatively. We have some humid days, but it is not the South. Thank God.
No.
Yeah.
Because
No.
Yeah, Virginia, we start to get into, depending on the year, 80, 90% humidity throughout the summer. It's pretty humid. So, you have the potential of not being able to effectively cool yourself depending on the environment that you
Right.
live and are
Right.
moving around in.
because you're essentially walking around in a sauna the whole time. Like
Yeah.
Florida, I don't
The
know why
entire
people
time.
live there. It's a sauna the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's already too warm to be in Florida. Like
Yeah.
we're like 6 weeks past the limit of when you would want to be in Florida.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, to live there, you're like a week in the winter. The rest of it,
Yeah.
not so much.
So let's talk about the effects of heat on the body. So as the body cools itself, where it's going to sweat, you're going to get increased blood flow to skin, right? Trying to like almost act like as a heat sink and take some of that heat out of your body. That's why we see people as they get hot, they get flush,
Yeah.
right? That the blood is rushing to the skin. We will also see like heat stress. And so, of course, the dehydration aspect, we already touched on that. And if you're sweating, which you're going to become dehydrated. So with that, you're going to have electrolytes that are sweated out, right? Key essential, minerals and salts and things like that are going to be released through your sweat. And that can cause some issues for us. We're going to talk a little bit more about those. Your blood pressure can decrease. So if you already have some blood pressure issues, maybe you take medicine for your blood pressure. And due to, that vasodilation, right? We're trying to cool down. Your blood pressure is already going to drop out. So if you are sensitive to blood pressure or take medication, and they put you in the heat or you're put in the heat, you may have issues related to that. And then, of course, altered mental status. Remember, I said some of these things are going to sound pretty similar to cool emergencies.
I know I have gone crazy when I've been too hot. Like, because not
That's
only
my problem.
Not only is it just like actual altered mental status, but now you're ornery because man, there's nothing that gets me more heated than being hot. Like it's miserable.
My workplace is a frying pan of a parking lot with no airflow in the summertime and giant steel containers, which are ovens.
Yeah.
So,
that means you're probably very familiar, Max, with the idea of heat exhaustion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
today, I won that battle today.
Yeah, we have two kind of major categories in the heat emergencies. And they're, one leads to the other. So we have heat exhaustion. Why don't you take us through that, and then I'll kind of bring it home with heat stroke.
Yep. So heat exhaustion occurs when fluid and electrolyte loss affects the circulation in your body. This is common in hot environments like what I work in the summertime. Strenuous activity, if you're going on a hike in the summertime and you're not hydrating adequately, that is a big thing. Is not just hydrating adequately, but making sure that you're bringing in those electrolytes that you're losing while you're doing that exertion. Some of the signs of these things, you might see heavy sweating. That's very, very common. You might see pale skin as you move into that heat exhaustion state. Cool skin. You could see dizziness, which is kind of part of that whole altered mental status and just your ability to stay balanced as you're walking. Weakness. You might start having a headache. I know I've had that quite a few times, especially when I'm in the point where I really need to pay attention to getting fluid intake. I start getting, a migraine as a result.
Yeah.
You can see nausea, which is also very common. You might see muscle cramps because as you start losing those electrolytes, your muscles don't work the way they should, and you start seeing cramping in those. And you're also going to get tachycardic. You're going to have your heart rate increase. But your mental status, for the most part, stays normal at the heat exhaustion state.
Yeah, it's kind of the point where you have the ability to keep making some good decisions to hopefully get yourself out of that situation.
Yeah, you're still compensating. It's just your body's having a more difficult time doing so.
So what do we do for a patient with heat exhaustion?
So, I mean, again, kind of a repeat, get them out of that environment, whether it's getting them into shade out of the sun or into some kind of air conditioning, whether it's a building or a vehicle. Loose and tight clothing. The looser the clothing is, the more air circulates across the skin, which can help them kind of, get rid of that heat. This is one of these times, assuming that the patient's alert and can swallow and has an airway, provide oral fluids to help them with their hydration. Cool them gradually. Again, like Jonathan was saying, you don't want to put them suddenly into an environment that puts their body into shock. Make sure you're monitoring their vital signs, so you make sure you're watching them, so if they start trending downwards, you kind of are able to anticipate it and treat them as such. And if needed, transport them. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes, just resting and hydration can really improve these symptoms and get to a point where they're back to a level base.
Yeah, I think from a heat management standpoint, I guess we could probably get into this after heat stroke. I'll save it for there because I think it helps to kind of talk about how heat exhaustion is a little bit different than heat stroke. Because heat stroke is if it got turned up to 11, right? It's the spinal tap of heat emergencies.
And there is a key sign and a difference when we're going from heat exhaustion to heat stroke.
Yes, and I'll definitely call that out because while I think most people have probably experienced heat exhaustion at some point. I remember getting it like a couple of times when I was a kid in the summer and just being like, whew, I feel terrible. And just going sitting down can help. Heat stroke is a life-threatening emergency. It is progressed to the point where it needs rapid intervention or that person can die. Essentially the body temperature is rising to dangerous levels. And the key difference that Max was referring to is at that point, your body has now lost the ability to compensate for that extra heat and stops trying to compensate by your skin stops sweating. And it could show red, hot skin instead of the cool, moist skin that we see in heat exhaustion. That's kind of the key indicator of okay, this has progressed because all of a sudden the sweating has stopped. It can still be moist, but and this may not be the definitive thing. So it's not to say, you have to see this for it to be heat stroke, but it's to say that generally that's considered to be a delineation between heat exhaustion and heat stroke.
Yep.
That end, the brain function starts becoming impaired. Yeah. Right. This is where we start seeing that altered mental status come in. And as soon as I think that's probably a really key indicator. If you see that with a hot environment, that you should be considering heat stroke right away. So hot skin, whether it's dry or moist, that's what we're starting to look for because they don't have the ability to sweat it out and it's not cooling them anymore. So confusion, seizures we can start seeing seizures at this point, febrile seizures, right? The same seizures that we get from high fevers. The body can only handle heat so much until it starts going, hey, you know what? Screw this. We're just gonna short some things out for a minute. So you might start getting those seizures, unconsciousness. Obviously the final form of altered mental status is unconsciousness.
Yes.
I would say death is potentially the final form.
Well, that's no longer altered. That's just lack of.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah. But we're still seeing those, like the body trying to compensate. So we're seeing the rapid pulse. We're seeing rapid respirations. And those can rapidly progress. And like what we know from shock is, okay, those are things that they're compensating for, right? And then ultimately those can move to, oh, why is their blood pressure starting to lower? And why is their heart rate lowering? And why is there, it's because now we're in decompensated shock, right? So this is like the body is in shock when it's going through heat stroke. So what are we doing? This is okay. We know this is super important. It's more intense. It's more of emergent than heat exhaustion. We need rapid cooling. Like we need rapid cooling right now. So we're removing the excess clothing. We're applying cold packs, maybe ice, if needed, to the neck, armpits, and groin. We're pointing fans at these patients. We could be dousing them in water, pointing fans at them, kind of kickstarting that evaporative cooling, getting them into a cooling tent is it's the same thing, right? We're trying to help with the evaporation. And we're definitely starting to do some of the stuff that we do as, for any patient that we're assessing from the primary and secondary standpoint. If they're having trouble breathing, we're giving them oxygen. If they're having low perfusion, we're giving them oxygen. Oxygen being a big one that's like, okay, as soon as we start seeing some of those signs of poor perfusion, we're jumping on that.
Yep.
Monitoring the airway, because if they're unconscious, they could be, they can not have a secured airway, and we're getting them to help fast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so, go ahead.
And like we talked about, and I mentioned, kind of the razor's edge of when we're doing these active heating and cooling procedures, right? If we're actively cooling somebody, the extreme is we don't want them to shiver. We want to cool them down rapidly, but we don't want to induce shivering.
Yeah.
Because that's we're fighting against ourselves at that point with what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And we're trying not to, go so extreme. Although we may have, like, if they really need rapid cooling, we should not hesitate on that. But
but when you start to see that shivering, that's you need to pull back
off. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Pull back on the gas. Now, I think the last thing that I'll touch on in this section, in hot and cold. And I was kind of gonna I kind of learned this into the dive when I was learning more about the active and passive cooling side of things. Like, it's changed over time. There's been some trends that have happened over the years, because I remember, learning basic first aid as a kid in the 80s and 90s that it seems a little bit different nowadays in terms of like what we should do in those environments. Well, I think the key takeaway is, over time, we've realized for cold emergencies, taking a little bit more of a cautious approach is warranted, because we've learned that cardiac problems start happening when we shock patients, when we change their status, or provide interventions that are very aggressive on the cold side. So instead of like really aggressive rapid heating, we've kind of progressed to hey, we're gonna be a little bit more cautious. We're gonna be more cautious with moving the patient, stressing them, so that we're not inducing that cardiac stuff. On the hot side, on the heat, the heat emergency side, it seems like things have gotten more aggressive. Like the best way to treat heat stroke is to treat heat exhaustion aggressively. So even in those mild stages of heat exhaustion, going straight to passive cooling, getting a cold pack on someone's neck or in their armpits, not going so far so that they get to that shivering point, like Jonathan mentioned, but doing active cooling even in a heat exhaustion stage is the best bet, because we don't want them progressing into heat stroke. And if we're in heat stroke, then aggressively cooling them with active cooling to get them to a good body temp. So it seems like that's kind of or at least my takeaway from what I've learned is like, if it's a heat emergency, start cooling them. like it's less concerning to be aggressive, but you just don't want to overshoot it. Whereas on the cold side, it's all right. Let's not go too crazy if they're just like, if they're starting to have some mild symptoms.
Like I know for me, the way I feel physically when I treat myself with a gradual, for heat, where I'm hydrating, where I have a towel that sits in the freezer at work in the fridge, and I throw that on the back of my neck, and for like a minute or so, like it completely changes the outcome of how I feel at the end of my day.
Yeah.
So it's something that I have to treat for myself, because when I haven't, it gets bad.
Yeah.
And it's something that carries on for more than just the day.
Sure. So I think that's if there's one key takeaway from all of this, is try to avoid it in the first place. Try to get patients out of the environment that is making them too hot, out of the environment that's making them too cold, and do that early. Like that should be the first thing that we're doing, removing the source of problem, right?
Yep. 100%.
Cool. So that's our chapter, or the first half. Could you imagine if we had to go through all of this? Like this was a lot to go through.
Would be 4 hours into it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you were saying, the more and more we do this, the further we get in, we realize like there's so much more detail in this, and we are 100% going further into these things as we've gone through the season.
So I think that's how the learning process is, though.
Yeah.
Like in general,
we just know
EMT,
more now,
right?
Yeah.
You start with that broad kind of strokes of how class is and the different chapters are, and then we really start to get into the different subjects.
Yep.
So
now, speaking of doing things, we have our super popular and ever requested tools of the trade section, where we talk about something that we use to help in situations.
Yeah. Everyone listens to the last 30 to 45 seconds of it before they, listen to Jonathan's section. So, hey, I get steady listeners as a result for that section. So it's always good.
So Max, why don't you bring us through our tools of the trade this week and how it ties into what we've been talking about tonight?
So one of the things we mentioned a few times is putting some kind of an insulation on the patient. And one of the things that is indispensable in my mind, should be in everyone's kit, is a Mylar blanket. Mylar blanket is a material that is a combination of aluminum and some other things that basically has a reflective surface, so it reflects heat back in towards the patient. So it allows them to stay warm, and it's one of those key things we use to treat for shock. Sometimes they're called rescue blankets, but they are an essential item at very low cost, and it does a very good job at temperature regulation and stabilizing trauma patients. And besides the simple warmth, these highly reflective foils are versatile instruments for managing critical conditions like shock and hypothermia.
And they look really cool.
And sound even better.
Yeah, they're super shiny and really crinkly.
Yes, they are.
And I will give $100 to the first person who is ever able to accomplish making it fold back into its original form after using it.
Yes, indeed, because it's impossible. Primary clinical uses for it, preventing the trauma triad of death, and that's by maintaining that patient's core temperature, and preventing hypothermia. Shock management, maintaining the body's heat at the core. It helps preserve blood flow to vital organs. Preventing heat loss. Again, these blankets address three main types of heat loss, which we talked about earlier: radiation, convection, evaporation. And there are definitely some techniques for how to use them.
Real quick, Max, though,
yep,
I think the thing to kind of tie it into what we talked about before, especially from the radiation perspective.
Yes.
The reflection aspect of a Mylar blanket, of this kind of like metallic thing, just to call it out, like when we were talking about radiation before, that is where a reflective surface is key, because our body is always trying to radiate heat out of it. And while that blanket may protect us from the wind, which is the convection, And it may help us from losing our sweat, which is the evaporation. The primary way that it works is being a reflective surface, so that radiation heat that we're trying to put out of our bodies just goes straight back in.
Exactly.
Which is
it just brings it back to the body instead of letting it escape. There are some key uses for it. Insulation from the ground.
Oh yeah.
Rescue blankets don't prevent conduction, but if you combine that with a jacket or a mat or some other kind of insulation, it can do a really good job of keeping them from losing heat through the ground. Using it as a full wrap, so being able to completely wrap it around the body. It provides an air trap that keeps that natural body heat in. You always want to leave the face exposed, mainly just, if nothing else, just so you can monitor breathing and make sure that you're not like completely ignoring what they're showing you as far as their symptoms go. And then layering them. During class, one of our instructors showed us a technique which was really cool, using different materials to wrap the patient in for transport. And one of the key parts of that was using that Mylar blanket, and then other materials layered on top of it. And that way you're preventing that heat loss, and you're allowing that to be transported without having to worry about that aspect.
See, now here's the
which
real
I thought
question.
was very cool.
Now, I'm not, I have an opinion on this. I don't know if there's a true right answer. Does the Mylar blanket go next to the skin of the patient, or does the Mylar blanket go on the outside of insulation?
I think next to the skin.
It depends.
I hate that answer and love it at the same time.
I can see, like, if all you have is the Mylar blanket, well, then of course it goes next to the skin. If you have a warm, dry blanket, and you could get somebody out of their wet clothes, let's put the warm, dry blanket on, then the Mylar, and then another warm, dry blanket on them.
Yeah.
Here's something additional. Max is talking about just the space blanket, the Mylar blanket. Well, they have Mylar blankets that have heating elements attached to them. Those you would not want to put those directly against the skin for fear of thermal burns with those heating elements.
Yeah.
I believe in general, or at least what I've learned in the past, is that you'd want the insulative layer to be next to the skin, and then wrapped around the outside is the reflective layer, so that you're helping generate the warmth on the inside, and then that reflective layer is keeping it in, and also being that it's basically like an occlusive dressing layer, it's keeping the air out, and so. If you had that in between, like the blanket, like a wool blanket and a person, it would essentially be cutting off any of the air exchange, which is how insulative layers work. So I think that's probably the best way to do it, is to, because the nice thing about them too is that if it's raining, it'll help them from getting more wet, because it's a waterproof layer.
And because they're so cheap, and there has been a lot of makeshift uses for them as well. Using them as a chest seal.
Sure.
It's an occlusive material.
History.
Using them, they have a good tensile strength. You're using them for splints or slings. Using them as a medical barrier. They can provide a clean surface for treating injuries in austere environments. And emergency transport. I have seen an individual carried with a Mylar blanket as a litter.
Yeah,
I've seen it happen.
They don't tend to tear, depending on what the plastic material is that's in them. But that I would not want to, but I can see it being used.
That would not be a good idea.
Yeah. That would not be my first choice. But the most important thing is that the story of the Mylar blanket starts in space.
Does it start in space?
That's where it began.
How
So in the 1950s, it was made by DuPont. There's a very technical term, which I am not going to butcher and try and pronounce.
Do you want me to try?
Go for it. You did a pretty good job last time.
Where is, it's,
yeah.
Oh, did you remove it?
No.
No, is it still in there?
Yeah.
I can't find it. Is it
biaxially oriented polyethylene terephthalate.
There you go. That's close enough.
Something like that. It's also called Mylar. So they trademarked it as Mylar. This started during the space race back in the 50s. NASA adaptation happened in 1964. NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center developed a space blanket by vacuum depositing a thin layer of aluminum onto the Mylar. It was also used to protect spacecraft such as the Apollo lunar module and astronauts from the extreme solar radiation and freezing vacuum of space. Transition into EMS happened in the 70s. The blankets moved from the aerospace into clinical settings. They were first used in hospitals to stabilize patients that were going into shock. They were seen a lot in the 70s and 80s. They were used for marathon runners as they were finishing races to prevent post-race cooling. Standardization came in the 80s. Emergency responders and outdoor rescue teams formally adopted the blankets as a standard gear. And also during global disaster relief, specifically the 1985 Mexico City earthquake, they were used extensively for warmth and improvised shelter.
Cool.
And now they're a standard in first aid kits. ANSI standards require a foil blanket in the industrial first aid kits that you see on work sites, and organizations like the American Red Cross include them as essential items. So it is one of those things where it is very inexpensive, and it could really do some good, and it takes up no room and it weighs nothing. So if you have an aid kit of any kind, I think that it is really important to have it included.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I bet you if I had to, well, I know I have a box of them somewhere, but I'd probably bet there's 20 plus Mylar blankets somewhere throughout my house. Yep.
So there you go.
Cool.
The Mylar blanket.
Also could be used as a signaling device.
It can be.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, Max, for walking us through that tool of the trade. I think it's an awesome tie-in to heat and cold emergencies, because you could use it to help kind of stave off heat as an emergency shelter too.
You could.
Yeah, like the emergency blankets are great. They're a great piece of kit beyond just the world of EMS. Like in survival situations, there's so many uses. It's unreal.
Yep.
But cool, man. So that brings us through our tools of the trade, and that brings us to our final segment.
Indeed.
With Jonathan, our student tip of the week.
Test prep. I sent over some questions for you.
All right. Let's see if Max and I can complete our. Is it 2 weeks in a row that we've had?
Yes.
Perfect scores.
100%.
Three for three, 2 weeks in a row.
Yes. Where are the test prep questions? I did not see them.
Me neither.
I did not. Yeah, I sent them to your email, Mike.
Oh, they're in my email.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm pulling up the email. There we go. All right. Which one are we doing first?
We're going to do the question of the day first, and then it will go from 1 to 2.
Question of the day.
Yeah.
Okay. I have it pulled up.
All right. This might relate to something that we experienced last night as we were guests on somebody else's podcast.
Oh, yeah.
This potentially could relate. All right. So an adult patient is found pulseless and apneic. If 3 rescuers are available, what is the appropriate next step?
Okay.
Answer 1. Initiate 1 rescuer CPR, beginning with chest compressions, while 2 rescuers apply an AED. Answer 2. Initiate 2 rescuer CPR, begin analysis with an AED. Answer 3. Initiate 2 rescuer CPR, beginning with 2 rescue breaths, while the 3rd rescuer applies an AED. And then answer 4. Initiate 2 rescuer CPR, beginning with chest compressions, while the 3rd rescuer applies an AED.
I am 100% confident, and I am locked in on an answer.
I think I am as well.
Now this is a tricky one because of the wording, because they all the answers sound pretty similar, so you have to kind of think through them. Do you guys want to talk through why you eliminated the answers you eliminated?
Yes. Hold on. I'm just bringing up the screen right now so Max can see it.
That would be awesome.
Okay.
There we go.
Awesome. So, all right, let's break it down. An adult patient is found pulseless and apneic. So no pulse and no breathing. You have 3 people available. And what is the appropriate next step? So I'm gonna say for this one, let's take an alternative approach to what we usually do instead of cutting them out, the ones that sound ridiculous, or finding the ones that don't sound good. I'd say, all right, we're reasonably confident that if we have 3 people available, we should start 2-person CPR, right?
Yes.
And before even looking at the answers, we know that there is a huge emphasis on making sure that somebody starts jumping on chest compressions right away. It's what you do.
Yes.
So if I'm going to look at the answers, I'm looking for whatever answer says do 2-person CPR and do whatever answer has an emphasis on chest compressions. And being that we have a 3rd rescuer available, or even if it was 2 rescuers, we'd want to make sure that somebody is devoted to getting the AED up and running.
Perfect.
So I would look through those answers and go, hey, which one of those things covers off on all those things? Like chest compressions as a priority number 1, a AED is priority number 2, and then using people that are available. And there's only one answer that does that.
Agreed.
Okay.
And that is answer number 4.
Yes.
That is correct.
Yay.
Yep. Initiate 2 rescuer CPR, beginning with chest compressions, while the 3rd rescuer applies an AED. That is correct.
Sweet.
Nice.
But that is a tricky one because all those answers are pretty similar.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And like they're only off by a little bit. Like the first one, initiate 1 rescuer CPR, beginning with chest compressions, while 2 rescuers apply an AED. That's close, but you don't need 2 rescuers to apply an AED.
No, you don't.
So,
all right, we're going to go to, it'll be question 1 of 10.
Okay.
All right. So a 30-year-old patient is found sitting on a park bench with complaints of shortness of breath after eating food from a street vendor. The patient is anxious, has audible wheezing, facial flushing, and scattered urticaria on the chest and arms. Vital signs include a heart rate of 118 beats a minute, respirations of 28 breaths a minute, a blood pressure of 104/68, and an oxygen saturation of 92% on room air. And I sent you an extended thing so you could see all the answers.
Okay.
So there should be another one. There you go. That should be it. Yeah. All right. So answer 1. Which condition most likely accounts for this presentation? Answer 1, a panic attack. Answer 2, heat exhaustion. We just talked about heat exhaustion. So answer 3, anaphylaxis. Or answer 4, acute asthma exacerbation.
Okay, so I'll take this one.
Okay.
So in my mind, with the description there's only 2 answers that make sense that make sense for the symptoms. I would immediately rule out panic attack. I would also rule out heat exhaustion.
Okay.
Which leaves us with anaphylaxis and acute asthma exacerbation.
Question for you, Max. Why would you immediately rule out panic attack?
The only reason I say that is because they're sitting on a park bench and they mentioned eating something. So I think the clue in there is the consuming of food. So to me, there's nothing there that's going to scream panic attack. The only thing that was there was they were anxious, but that could be a symptom of other things.
Okay.
And the heat exhaustion thing, I don't necessarily see anything that's jumping up to me about what we just talked about that's going to make me think heat exhaustion, especially when they're talking about audible wheezing. So they're talking about respiration issues. So in my mind, it leaves us with anaphylaxis and acute asthma exacerbation. and I think the key there is the flushing, the audible wheezing, and the scattered urticaria on the chest and arms.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to land on anaphylaxis.
So what is scattered urticaria?
Is splotchy red marks.
Mm-hmm.
Hives.
Yeah. So you have the respiratory, which could be either one of those, but the hives showing up, and the fact that he just ate some food from a street vendor, that was the big, like, to me, it was like immediately they started talking about that, and then respiratory issues. I'm thinking anaphylaxis.
Yeah, I from the get-go, I was 100% locked on this, mainly because there were two, like it's the key definition of anaphylaxis versus an allergic reaction is two or more signs of that allergic reaction. So the urticaria plus the wheezing, we're like, okay, those are things that are that give me confidence that this is anaphylaxis.
I would even say we have a third sign, Mike.
Yes. For sure. The
low blood pressure with the high beats per minute.
Yep.
Yeah. The tachycardia.
Yep.
But yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah. You guys are locked in on anaphylaxis.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're correct.
2 for 2.
Yeah, baby. 2 for 2.
Woohoo. And the reason I asked you about panic attack, Max, is because there's actually really nothing in there that like says they can't be having a panic attack.
True. I mean, they're saying anxiety, they're being anxious,
right?
So anxious, fast breaths per minute. I mean, they might be having a panic attack as they're having anaphylaxis.
They could be, and that's just to say that like. I wouldn't have just cut it out just because like, oh, I don't like any of those things can be a panic attack. And I think one of the things that we learned in EMS is that we shouldn't be dismissive of it if that is, something that somebody could be having. But I think the most appropriate answer was, hey, look at all these symptoms. They're pointing pretty clearly to anaphylaxis.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool. What's our third question, Jonathan?
Awesome. All right. So third question for the evening. And final question. During the initial assessment of a semi-conscious patient, you hear a low-pitched snoring sound with each breath. Which condition do these breath sounds most strongly indicate? Secretions in the alveoli? For answer 1. Answer 2, partial obstruction of the upper airway due to relaxed soft tissue. Answer 3, fluid in the upper airway requiring suctioning. Answer 4, lower airway bronchoconstriction.
I am a 100% lock.
Yep.
Max, you are as well?
Oh, 100%, yes.
Okay. Being that we are both 100% confident, I will walk through this one because Max took the last one. In terms of the sounds that we're hearing, snoring, is typically associated with an upper airway obstruction.
Yep.
So that's the giveaway there. Secretions of the alveoli, that is something that happens within the lungs. That is not the upper airway. Partial obstruction of the upper airway due to relaxed soft tissue. Yes, that's a thumbs up on that one. Fluid in the upper airway requiring suctioning. While that is in the right area, it is not. It doesn't fall into the right kind of sound category of gurgling.
Nope. Right.
So I would say that's probably cut out. Even that one's the closest in there. Is like, oh, should it be snoring or gurgling? Well, that one's gurgling. Yep. And then a lower airway bronchoconstriction, which again is in the wrong area, which would be more like wheezing. So snoring, upper airway, partial obstruction of the upper airway due to relaxed soft tissue. Lock it in. I don't even need to phone a friend.
Nope.
You are correct. So
nice.
You are 3 for 3 on tonight's episode.
We're having a banger week, guys. I'm telling you.
We are indeed.
So that concludes our test prep for the week. You guys are 3 for 3 this week, and I think it's 3 for 3 3 weeks in a row. You guys have gotten the questions correct as I've provided them. As listeners, we would love to hear how you guys are doing as you're following along. So drop us an email or a message on any of our social media and let us know how these test prep sections are helping you get prepared for your National Registry EMT test.
For sure. Where are you at? How are you doing yourself with these tests? Are you going along with us? How are you doing with the answers? Maybe you're better off than we are. Maybe you're 3 for 3 for the entire string.
Yeah. We had some tough ones in there, but I'm sure there's some really smart people that are out there like, how did they miss those?
Yeah.
How did they not know that acute mountain sickness is a thing? Well,
he said he was ski patrol.
Well, we're gonna be talking about that more next week. So stay tuned for the continuation of environmental emergencies.
Yep.
Where we'll be going through a bunch of different stuff, including altitude, diving, deep sea, animal bites, a bunch of stuff. So hopefully you'll enjoy, environmental part 2. And, we just want to say thank you all for taking the journey with us. And we'll see you next time on the Ride Along. This podcast is for educational and storytelling purposes only. It is not medical advice or official EMT training. Always follow your accredited instructors and local protocols.
Heartbeats racing